Bonjour and welcome to Moments in Time. Je m'appelle Lucien Byfield. This time we discuss the history of the French Grand Prix. And oui, my name is French. Grand Prix racing started in France and the first race was run in 1906. The French have hosted a Grand Prix at no less than 16 venues, not quite as many as Australia, but an amazing statistic nonetheless. Recently, the race has returned to a modified Paul Ricard after a break from many years at Magny-Cours. But circuit names like Lyon, Le Mans, Reims, Rouen, Dijon, to name a few, just sound like Formula One, don't they? While being one of the longest serving countries to host an F1 race, there have been many times where there was no French Grand Prix on the calendar, due to political or wartime, and at times, Bernie Ecclestone bargain hunting reasons. The new version of Paul Ricard is a favourite test track for many categories. It is like looking at a migraine with all those lines painted in blue, white and red. Still, it is a gem of a track, and for me, having got into Formula One in the 80s, Paul Ricard still holds a special place in my heart, particularly seeing my hero Alain Prost do so well there many times. He was to win the French Grand Prix 6 times, although at 3 different venues: Dijon, Paul Ricard and Magny-Cours. Considering the huge rivalry Prost had with Senna and how Prost was to win 6 times at Brazil, much to his rival's frustration, Ayrton never won in France, which is remarkable considering how many tracks and venues he actually did win at. When reflecting, I cannot recall that many spectacular races, particularly at Magny-Cours, a track that on paper should have been amazing, yet for some reason lacked soul, spirit or something. I have no idea what it was, but it was often a boring race. So, to some of the classic French Grand Prix of the past, 88 and 89, more for qualifying than the race, although the 88 race was to show a side of Prost rarely seen, when he dummied Senna and used another car to make a double pass for the lead. But it was the fact that as teammates to Senna, Prost rarely outqualified him. Of his 4 poles when with Senna at McLaren, 2 of them came at Paul Ricard. Prost had something at this track in particular, and Senna just never had the luck. Speaking of 89, how was that start line crash where Big Mo Mauricio Gugelmin forgot he had brakes and careered into everybody in his way, creating a massive pile-up? Somehow there were no injuries, but this crash gave us a demonstration of the total incompetence of the marshals in riding the Leighton House March of Big Mo by flipping it back on its wheels without checking if the driver was injured. Yes, he was still strapped in the car. Oh, if he had been injured, say in the neck, they might have paralysed him. 1999 was a classic, wet weather affected and giving a surprising result for the Jordan Grand Prix team with only their 2nd career win. Ironically, Damon Hill was all depressed, threatening to quit after Heinz-Harald Frentzen, also getting his 2nd career win, stepped up and won a crazy race where even Rubens Barrichello in the Stewart was in with a chance, having started from pole. Last year saw Lewis Hamilton win the newly reinstated French race at Paul Ricard, after Vettel did one of his crazy moves on Bottas, giving an unchallenged win to Lewis. Now, Mr. Hamilton was to secure a remarkable statistic. He became the most winning driver at different tracks, that being 23 and counting. Michael Schumacher was to win in France 8 times, but a couple of those wins really stand out. 2004, the Ferrari team and Schuey executed a 4-stop strategy to outfox the pumped-up Fernando Alonso on home soil for Renault. No one saw it coming in a year of utter dominance. Michael blitzed it, and Nando didn't win a race that year. The other notable is 2002, that Simon Welch reminded me of. Kimi Raikkonen, then with McLaren in only his 2nd year in Formula One, was headed for his 1st career win, but he had a half spin on oil at the Adelaide hairpin, and Michael, who for once was being beaten in another dominant season for Ferrari, was to snap up not only the win, but he also took his 5th world title at the time. His zigzag move on the finish line was majestic and made the car look like a toy. What an era for Michael. As for Kimi, he did look upset, although he looks that way when he wins. He had to wait till 2003 before he would win a race in Formula One. One of the most classic races was the 1990 event, the last at Paul Ricard until 2018. Prost qualified his usual way, decent, unspectacular, but solid as ever, and let the others, Mansell, Senna, etc., fight it out. Strangely, both Leighton House cars were to lead for a large part of the race. Stranger still, they had failed to qualify for the previous race, and, ironically, Adrian Newey, falling out with the team, had orchestrated the upgrades that made the team suddenly competitive. I think Adrian was to be the long-term winner of this race, in a display of engineering brilliance. And without this, we may never have seen his rise to fame in quite the way it bloomed, because he was suddenly sought after by all the big teams. Anyway, Ivan Capelli and Maurizio Gugelmin were looking to upset the establishment, but Big Mo was to retire, and in the closing stages, when Prost in the Ferrari had got into a secure second place, poor Capelli was to suffer a technical glitch that slowed him enough for Prost to sweep by and claim Ferrari's 100th win. Ivan came second, but morally he was the winner. Prost was to mount a serious title challenge that year with a hat-trick of wins during that time of the season, but we all know what happened at Suzuka. A few quick random moments. Michael Schumacher was to collide with Senna not once but twice in 92 in a two-part race. In 96, Shuey was to break down on the warm-up lap, handing Damon Hill an easy win. Nigel Mansell was to have two dominant double-year stints with wins in 86 and 87 at Paul Ricard, and then in 91 and 92 at Magny-Cours. David Coulthard was to give Shuey the finger in 2000, then pass him for the win, but stupidly apologised after the race. I'm not saying I agree with the finger, but given Michael's ruthlessness, and particularly on that day, anyone who stood up to him deserved a medal. Nelson Piquet was to win in 85, in a poor season for him and his Brabham team, and he showed off his scorched feet on the podium after roasting them in a car that was not kind to him on a very hot day. In 1979, a turbo car won for the first time when Jean-Pierre Jabouille won for the usually unreliable Renault of the time. Ferrari have won in France 17 times, and of the current drivers, only Hamilton and Raikkonen have won in France. I will leave you with a fun fact from the 82 race, where Prost and Arnoux, both Frenchmen at Renault on home soil in Paul Ricard, were to ignite one of the many team order controversies in Formula One history. Prost, assured of team play due to reliability concerns and championship status, was biding his time in second place, and Arnoux was given the order to slow, one in which he did not obey. The usual BS ensued, but what was hilarious was what happened to Prost on the way home when stopping off for petrol in a road car. The assistant was an Arnoux fan. He hated Prost completely, and he mistook the real-life Prost for Arnoux, and promptly started trash-talking Prost to Prost, assuming he was Arnoux. See if you can follow that one. Now, Prost was to get out of there as fast as he could, not using his elf card, which would have given his identity away. Oh, it sounds like a movie. Anyway, that's it for this time. Thanks for checking in to Moments in Time. Au revoir.